How I became a UX designer is my most asked question in my DMs right now. After a reel went viral last week, I've been getting tons of DMs about how to get a job in US and how I moved from fashion to UX design. What was the exact course that I took in order to get this job that I'm doing right now. So I put in a QA in my Instagram story, and so I'll be responding here with most of the questions that came in. A lot of people are interested in moving to a UX design from several fields, and they want to get to know more about my journey and how I ended up as a UX designer. So a little bit about my background. So I did my bachelor's in BSc Fashion and Apparel Designing. I was always so passionate about making designs and very creative from childhood. So around like 10th standard, I knew that I wanted to get into a field where I could use that creativity and be a fashion designer. I always loved outfits and dressing up. So that was something that really interested in me. So I joined a school for my +1 and +2 where they had fashion designing as one of the subjects. So it was CBSE board, and they had fashion and apparel. I think it was called fashion studies back then, and that's where I got to experience and learn about fashion, that it's not just about clothes, it's about learning about fabrics, the composition of fabrics, how a yarn is made, what is a thread, a lot of details about the industry and the back end of the stuff, which was more interesting to me, and I wanted to learn more about it. So that's when I made the decision that I want to become a fashion designer, and I would want to pursue a career in it. So that's how I took my course. I studied in Bangalore, India. The institute was called Vogue Institute of Fashion Technology. None of my parents or anybody in my family had much idea about this industry. So they couldn't help me, guide me that much. So a senior of mine from school was studying there, and I enrolled in the same college with her. So from there, I graduated my BSc in Fashion and Apparel Designing. I did complete an internship in my final year there. And from there, I decided I didn't want to be a fashion designer. I know. I was thinking I would want to be a fashion designer, but the reality was, as I learned more, I understood my skills were more in management and other parts than pattern making and making costumes. That didn't bring me happiness. So from there, I did my master's in fashion management. It was called Masters in Fashion Management from NIFT Hyderabad. And I really liked the course because you learned a lot about the business, the retail space, buying, merchandising, how to be an entrepreneurship, and a lot more that really helped me learn about the business. So during my master's, I completed 2 internships. One was with Gokuldas Exports, and the other one was with Lifestyle. And after I graduated, I got married soon, and I moved to US. So that's when the shift happened. So that's when the realization happened. After moving here, there was definitely a culture shock. I was getting acclimated with the surroundings, getting myself independent, and it was a completely different world than where I came from. Also, I came here on a dependent visa, so it was not possible for me to start working. At that point, I could have done another master's from US, but I didn't wanted that financial burden of another student loan. So by the time I had an EAD, so I leveraged my master's at the point, and I was working with a consulting company as a business development executive. But as being a creative person, and it was not really my interest, I wanted to do something differently. And since doing a master's wasn't an option, we randomly stumbled upon UI UX design. I didn't know about boot camps back then. While I was studying in NIFT, I knew that there was Master of Design. There was another batch who pursued design and they were doing Master of Design. So product designing was one of the topic they had. So I was aware of that, but I didn't know I could shift to that, and so when I stumbled upon this boot camp, I wasn't sure if I could do it at that point. And it was an investment. Even though it was not as expensive as doing a master's, it was still a big amount for us. Also, I just had Mia and she was like 6 months old when I enrolled in this course. And we didn't have any help. We didn't have our parents with us. So I had to manage everything on my own. So when I chose this particular UI UX bootcamp, I did a lot of research on which is the best institute to go forward. Even though this one was more expensive than others, there was a lot of support that was given to me during my job searching phase. And we had a small community of students and people who passed out from the course that helped each other find a job. So coming into the course that I did a UX UI bootcamp from Flatiron School, which was a 6-month long bootcamp. When I say bootcamp, it was an actual bootcamp. I was on Zoom calls till 12 a.m. in the morning sometimes. So you get the gist. And it was not the best experience in my life. But I'm glad I went through that horrible phase because we got hands-on training. We had trainers that supported us, getting constant feedback, and we were divided into cohorts, and each cohort had multiple groups, and you have a particular team that you worked with. So you kind of do like 4 projects, and one of them is a real client. So you get that client interaction. Otherwise, your instructors were your stakeholders, and you have a team that you work with each project, and the teammates are like designers and project managers. So you learn everything firsthand, and that experience gave me a lot of confidence in finding my first job. So even after completing my master's, I wasn't very confident about the actual job I would do in a company. I know everything theoretically, but I didn't have the confidence to do it. But when it came to boot camp, everything you learned by doing. So you had to learn the theory, and you had exams for that. But otherwise, you had a tons of assignments that you submit on a Saturday. That was the deadline. So you were working 24/7 literally to get that done. And it was a very fast-paced sprint system. So all the projects were in Agile. We had 4 to 5 sprints to complete a project, and then you had to present it. You get feedback, you iterate, and then you present it. So each of these projects became case studies in my portfolio when I started looking for a job. And I did make a few good friends from my boot camp, which we are still in touch with. Going through that experience together, it was really, really helpful to have that support. And I graduated in June or July of 2020. I think May or June of 2020, because Mia just turned 1 when I graduated. It was really difficult for me to get through that process. But you know what? At the end, it was all worth it. There was some time in between I thought, like, why will I spend around $20,000 on a course where it was available for $5,000 or $6,000 from a different institute. But believe me, if I didn't have, I don't think I would have had the confidence to give my first interview. Institute also gave you a career coach who supported you afterwards about how to build a resume. What is the best way to have a portfolio done? And you get feedbacks from your peer groups, and then you can always make changes and make it better. So that gave you like some kind of confidence, and it became your support system till you find a job. But that being said, not all of us found a job, even who completed the course. Some of them went back to their old jobs because it was hard for them to get a job. Some of them didn't really enjoy the process of UX design, so they gave up. And for some, it was hard to learn the technology that we need to become a UX designer. During the time I started learning UX design, we used Sketch mostly and a little bit of Adobe XD, and we all switched over to Figma because that was the latest new thing, and we were given a membership for free from the institute. The companies I worked with also was using Sketch, and now they all moved over to Figma. So it was really helpful to know both the technologies and how to use the platform very well. So that was kind of my path to getting into a UX job. But when I talk about UI UX, these are two different things. If you want to become a UI designer, you focus more on the interface designing, like designing components and design system, the color, the accessibility, and a lot more front end. And for a UX designer, you do more research and you collect data that helps you into designing the frameworks, which we call wireframes. That eventually becomes the final design with a lot of iteration and feedback from stakeholders. And there is this in-between category called product design who does both. In my company, I do research to UI design, but we also have a designated UX researcher who conducts interviews and other stuff. So when people reach out to me saying, I'm a graphic designer, can I become a UX designer? Of course you can become a UX designer by learning more about the subject and getting some kind of certification and creating a better portfolio and case study. You can definitely give interviews and get hired. But at the same time, right now the job market is really, really bad. We have people with a lot of experience looking for jobs. And also in the recent years, there have been a lot of boot camps and Google certification, Coursera certifications that people are taking and trying to get into the job. So the market is currently saturated, but that doesn't mean that you won't get a UX job. I hope this helps with a few of the questions that you had. Okay, so let me go through some of the questions. So there was one confusion that came in through the reel that people thought I applied from India and came to US because of the job. If you are somebody from India and you want to move to US, you could do a master's here and get a student visa and then port over to a working visa. That's one option of doing it. Other one is getting a family visa if you have somebody. But the visa system in US is not the best. Everybody is in backlog. We've been waiting for our green card for years now. And even for family visa, it takes tons of years to get here. If you're working in a US based company in India, you could always ask them for a transfer, or you can ask the company to sponsor your H1B and then you can come to US. But currently, as of now, you cannot apply like a PR from India. And I'm not 100% sure, but if you are a PhD, maybe you can do a self-sponsorship. But other than that, like how Canada or Australia has like PR options, US doesn't provide that kind of visa right now. And I hope in future they come up with something like that and put us all at ease at getting a work visa. So most people wanted to know how I found a job in US, but I didn't come to US because of this job. I was already here when I found this job. Since I have an EAD, I have the flexibility to do any job in US, but the truth is not all employers will hire you. Like they don't want to deal with H4 EAD because it comes with a validity and expiration date and you have to renew it. So it's a bit of a hassle. So not all employers want to deal with it. And I know a lot of people on dependent visa are trying to find a job or move to a different career because of this restriction, because there was a lot of career gap in your background. For the people who reached out to me asking advice on different career paths. I'm not a career coach, so I really don't know about other fields. So the course I mentioned was UI UX bootcamp from Flatiron School. So when I enrolled, it was called Designation or Designation, and it was one of the best courses that was offered back then. Soon after I enrolled, Flatiron acquired Designation. Flatiron also offers software boot camps, coding boot camps, that you can become a software engineer if you don't have a background on coding. They also offer data analytics course if you're interested in that field. So somebody have asked, like, do you need a coding background to work in UX? So you don't need a coding background to get into UX designing. We are not looking anything in the back end. We are working more on the front end. But if you know coding, that will help you communicate with the developer better. There's another question that's asked about if people from fine arts can come into this field. You can. As I mentioned before, there is no restrictions on what background you come from. But if you are somebody from psychology, somebody who has a background in design, that can be used as more leverage, because those are the most transferable skills to become a UX designer. So another question is, can engineers become a UX designer? In that also is a yes. You can definitely become a UX designer if you study about UX design or human computer interaction. Design is another course that you can do in order to become a UX designer. The question is, what is my qualification and what job am I currently doing? So I have a bachelor's in fashion and apparel designing, and I have a master's in fashion management. I also have a UI UX certification from Flatiron School. People also confuse UX design with graphic design or front-end website development. It can be applied anywhere, but most companies, when you hire as a UX designer, so you're going to work on the post-login flows. Currently I'm working in a bank, so after a user has logged into your bank platform, transfer or any features they use will be responsible of a UX designer. Pre-login, it's always done by marketing. They look into the information and how to acquire the users to come in and create a bank account in the bank. And once the user logs into the bank, anything after that is designed by a UX designer. So another question that was asked, like how to switch from a non-IT to an IT job. Even though I work very closely with the IT department and developers, I'm integrated in their agile team. I am not in IT department. I work in a digital department who supports the IT department in a company. Some of the questions were very repetitive, so I don't think I have to answer those. Another question was, now job market is very bad. Will it come back normal soon? I don't know the answer for that. I hope for the best, and hopefully it will recover soon. Next question was, how did you face the interviews? So one good thing about my bootcamp is we did get to do mock interviews with people who was with our alumni who was working in different companies. So they used to come and take our mock interviews, which helped developing, giving interview skills. Also, different company has different way of getting interviews done. Some have a very simple process of 2-step interviews. Some make you do whiteboard challenge or like a design challenge, and it could be a week-long interview. Some do a portfolio review and other stuff. So I can do an in-depth longer video if you're interested in learning interview tips for UX designers. So another question was, how long you are working and do you have career gap? I have been working as a UX designer for 4 years now. I think my career gap would be like 1 to 1.5 years because I moved to a different position as a business development executive. So I didn't have a bigger career gap, but I also didn't continue with that career for a longer time. Question is, can you share the details of how did you land a job as a fresher in UX design field after switching? As I mentioned before, the bootcamp was really helpful in preparing me to give interviews, and it actually didn't take me longer to find my first job. Since I had a real client and a real client project that helped me craft a story and have a good case study in my portfolio, and I don't know, maybe it's luck because I landed a job very quickly after I graduated from my bootcamp. So there are other non-UX related questions. Hopefully I'll answer that some other time. So how did you get work authorization in US, and did a company sponsor me? I have my work authorization through dependent visa. So if I want, my company would sponsor me, but since I already have a visa, I really don't need it, so I'm not pushing it. Also, if the company sponsors me, it would be hard for me to switch over to a different company or a job in the future because the visa have to be ported to a different company and it becomes more hassle. So I'm currently staying on my EAD right now. What are the softwares you need to learn in UX design? So as I also mentioned before, you could learn Sketch, you could learn Figma, Adobe XD, depends on what the current company is using. Also, you need to learn another software that the company uses, such as Google Analytics for data collection, Medallia if you are into UX research, user testing or user Zoom in order to conduct usability testing and user interviews. So these are a couple of the softwares we use. We also use FigJam, but previously used Miro for collaborating and whiteboarding. And what else? And you also need to learn to make your own website or a portfolio. So that could be a Squarespace. I have mine on Webflow. So, there is a little learning curve to becoming a UX designer. But if you have a little bit of experience in any other softwares, I'm sure you can pick it up quickly. Were you on H1B visa when you got your first job? No. My husband is on H1B visa, so I get his dependent visa, and our green card has been processing for a while now. So I have my EAD, and that's how I'm working right now. Another question is, any tip for people who are searching jobs right out of their masters? So I'm assuming that you're already here and doing your masters. Number one tip would be to get a LinkedIn premium so that you can reach out to their recruiters directly and pitch for the position. Also try to diversify the job searching. Don't just look in LinkedIn. Go into Indeed, Glassdoor, any other job searches. Also contact other consultancies where they could give you a contract job to start with, because I know after the student visa you have to go into OPT and you need a job to get that. Somebody have asked, is Indian experience not considered valid in America? I'm facing this issue. I'm really sorry that you are dealing with this. It's not that it's considered irrelevant, but if you have done a course here, it would help you a bit more in finding a job. I don't know what you're referring to. People usually consider your Indian experience here. But there might be some other blocker that's not helping you find a job here. Any recommendations on how to start a career in IT with a huge career gap? Get some certifications done, be updated about the current technology and how the industry is working. Get some recommendations from your peers, so that could help you. And be confident and just start applying, and when it's the right time, it will find you. So people are asking me, what are the job sites you can find a job? Number one would be LinkedIn. That's very accessible and you can find pretty much updated jobs there. If you have a company that you really like and want to go work for them, you can always find their career page and look for opportunities if they have a position open. Indeed, Glassdoor, Dice.com. I think that's pretty much most places that I know of. Another question is, was my bootcamp online or offline? That's a very good question, because when I registered for the bootcamp, it was an offline on-campus bootcamp for 6 months. And the moment I started the boot camp, COVID hit and they had to switch it over to online, and I was one of the first remote batch they had. In a way, I was really thankful that happened because I had to take care of a 6-month-old and do the boot camp at the same time, so it really worked out for us. Some other questions are very irrelevant for the current topic. Maybe I can do a Q&A later. Also, I've answered most of the questions that's in the similar group. Thank you for reaching out. There was like so many number of questions that came in. I hope this video helps you in kickstarting your career or switching over or even thinking about it. Let me know what more do you want to know about it. I can make content based on that. Thanks for watching and see you with another video.